here we have a diagram of what is shown on the plans. Here's the rib with the spar. Of course there should be another one here, like that. Now, to get the leading edge, the plans show us to glue a 12 by 12 block of balsa wood to the front of the ribs, and then we form it to the shape of the wing, and then glue down this upper skin here. This is not a very good solution. To begin with, forming a huge block of wood like this is problematic, mostly because when it's glued in front of 1.5mm ribs like this, it will result in some ribs being broken. So another thing is that here we have a joint that will always be seen. There will always be a ridge here, and it might even come loose. So we're going to do something else. Now here's what we're going to do. Here we have the rib, and to the front of it we glue a 3mm piece of wood, and it will be just high enough to clear the ribs, and then we will form it down to the shape of the ribs here in the top. So instead of 12mm, we're going to put 3mm. What we then do is we glue the upper skin on here, and we trim it in flush with this 3mm sheet of balsa, and we do the same with the lower skin. So here we have both the skins trimmed to this false leading edge. Next we take a 10mm piece of balsa, high enough to cover the leading edge, and we glue it to the leading edge of the wing. Then we get a very strong glue joint on here on the 3mm sheet, and on the sheeting both top and bottom, so that this will be enormously strong. Then we form the leading edge from this 10mm piece of wood, and this is very easy because we have both the sheeting on the top and the bottom, and this enormously strong glue joint. And there we have then the leading edge of the wing, much stronger than before. Here I've got 3mm balsa, according to the changes I'm going to make, and it's best to just pin it down like this lightly, and then glue it with some thin CA glue. Now this is firmly stuck on, and I can take the pins away. Now I have to make this curve carry on down onto the 3mm balsa wood. This is best done with something like a balsa plane. You can do it with sandpaper, but this is quicker. Now we're going to close the front of the wing with this balsa wood, but there's something extremely important, and that is to remove all the pins in there that would get closed off if we glued this on top of them. You can ask me why I know that this is important. While the leading edge is drying, we can glue the middle, the center section, like this. Okay, so now it's the cap strips. I'm going to put cap strips on all of these ribs, and in each case they fit on the center of the cap strip, except here you put it on the edge so that most of it stands out into the wing. All right. And so the glue has hardened, and we can pick the wing off the table. Now I've taken out all the pins except a few that are still holding the wing spar, and while it's there I'm going to use the opportunity and run some sandpaper over the wing just to take out the biggest well, things that shouldn't be there. Just even it out a little bit. I've got 80 grit sandpaper, and the absolute word here is gentle. I have to be very gentle because sandpaper like this will eat through 1.5mm balsa in no time. Here I've got 10mm balsa that I'm going to glue to the leading edge, but before I can do that I have to cut away the balsa that is overhanging here. And now I just rub it with a little sandpaper to take it down. Now this balsa wood here, which is 10mm thick and 15mm wide, fits completely here on the leading edge, and there's nothing preventing us from gluing it down. So now we just have to let this dry before we can start forming the leading edge. Well, now the glue up is dry and we can take off the elastics and the pins. Okay, so what we now have to do is cut off the things that are protruding on either end, maybe sand that a little bit, and then we have to plane down the leading edge. Now here we come to one of my favorite tools, the balsa plane. It's really useful, and I'll put a link in the explanations, in the doobly-doo as they called it, and where you can get one of these. Now the way I'm holding the plane is at 45 degrees, both front to back and side to side. So I'm taking a 45-degree shaving from the leading edge, starting from the front and just very thin and very narrow, and it'll get broader as we come to the as we go up the wing. Now we're getting very close to the balsa sheeting here on top, and we definitely don't want to use the plane on that. What we now have to do is go back to the front edge here and take that down so that we can get the round of the leading edge in a few steps. This has started to look very much like a leading edge, so let's take a few strokes on the bottom. What I'm doing is I'm moving the sandpaper front and back in a, well, not straight, but sort of on the slide here. But what I want to do is get the glue line down and start the shape of the leading edge, the rounding. So to do that, I roll the sandpaper to the front. Now it's probably best to put it here on the edge of the table. I'll move the camera and show you how I do this. Now, what we have to realize is that the AT paper really eats away at the balsa. So this has taken just a few minutes to get everything level and the shape just about the way we want it. So what I want to do now is get a different sandpaper, a finer grade, and form the front of the leading edge. I don't want to have it this sharp. And to end, I've got some 240 paper. I just crease it together, and then I'm going to use it just in my hand to get the rest, of the curves. There we go. Leading edge. Lovely. The last bit we're going to glue onto the wing, which will finish this left wing, is the wing tip. Now the wing tip is made out of this. It's a balsa block that's 25 by 25 millimeters, and it's sawn in half to make a triangle. This we will glue to the wingtip, and after it's been glued down, we can form it. Right, it's the last thing we do with this wing. We form the wingtip. We do that with sandpaper and a plane, but we could also just carve away at it with a knife, maybe saw a little bit to be quicker. Let's have a look. Now I'm going to sand this down using 80 grit sandpaper, and I'll just use this sanding block, but put the sandpaper just at the end of it so that it can rest on the wing without sanding it. And the only thing that we're going to sand is the wingtip. Notice that the wingtip has taken on the curve of the rib, because it's cut at a 45-degree angle here. It's a triangle. So when we cut it along the rib, we duplicate the curve of the rib. Really clever. Okay, now here we are, nearly finished. I just have to sand this wingtip just a little bit. I've got some 240 grit paper and just lightly sanding over it, just making it ready for covering with plastic. There. So now we just have to make the other wing. I'm not going to do that in camera, I'm just going to do it off camera, and when I've finished it I'll call you back.